Welcome to this explainer on our basics guided notes. If you've got yours ready, go ahead and grab a pencil because we're going to fill them out together. Seriously, this is where your journey into coding truly kicks off. Mastering these very basics is the literal first step to building anything you can imagine, from apps and video games to complex software. Every professional programmer out there, whether they're working on a massive social media platform or programming a robotic rover to explore Mars, started exactly where you are sitting right now, learning these exact same fundamentals. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. Welcome to Python. Speaking the language, storing data, doing the math, a quick knowledge check, and we'll wrap up with the big takeaway. So, part 1. Welcome to Python setting the foundation. Moving right along to part 2. Speaking the language, rules of the machine. Programming is essentially just learning a brand new language so you can actually communicate with a computer. Just like English or Spanish has specific rules for how you string words together so people understand you, well, Python has rules so the computer understands you. And that brings us to our very first major vocabulary word for your notes, syntax. Syntax is the specific rules and grammar required to write basic programs in Python. Go ahead and get that exact definition jotted down right now. It's absolutely crucial. If you miss a single comma, forget to close a parenthesis, or misspell a command, boom, you've got a syntax error. It's exactly like forgetting a period at the end of a sentence, except, well, the computer is a way stricter grader than your English teacher. It literally needs everything to be precise. Now, beyond those super strict rules, there's actually a really helpful way for us humans to talk to each other right there inside the code itself, and these are called comments. Let's get this one written down too. Comments are notes written in the code for humans to read, ignored by the computer. And this brilliantly illustrates how programmers actually manage their daily workflow. By using comments, developers can explain their thought process, they can outline their development cycle, or even just leave helpful little reminders for themselves, all without messing up that strict syntax the computer is obsessing over. It's kind of like whispering to your lab partner while the teacher, the computer in this case, just totally ignores you and keeps on working. All right, on to part 3. Storing data, memory, and variables. Think about it. A computer program really isn't very useful if it can't remember your high score in a game, right? Or your character's name, or that password you just typed in. So to force a computer to actually remember things, we use what's called a variable. Let's get this vital definition down in your notes. A variable is a labeled container used to store and modify data in a computer program. I want you to think of a variable exactly like a physical cardboard storage box. You take a black marker and you write a clear label on the outside of that box. Now, the stuff inside the box, that might change over time. Maybe you take out a toy, put in a book, but that label written on the outside stays exactly the same. In Python, we're basically building these digital storage boxes to hold our info. So, what kind of data can we actually stuff inside these variable boxes? Well, the computer needs to know exactly what it's dealing with, so we use different data types. First up, we have an integer, which is just a fancy programming word for whole numbers, like the number 10. Next is a float, and that represents decimal numbers, like 3.14. Then we have a string. A string holds text characters, like the word hello. And here's a pro tip, it is always wrapped in quotation marks. And finally, a boolean, which only holds true or false values. Literally, every single time you create a variable container, you're filling it with one of these specific data types. Pretty straightforward, right? Now, what's really interesting here is how we choose to name those variable containers. Check this out. Naming a variable simply x equals 10 might make total sense to the computer. It perfectly follows the syntax rules, but man, it is a terrible, confusing name for us humans. If you come back to this code a month from now, are you going to remember what x is supposed to be? Probably not. No way. Instead, using player_score equals 10 is so much better. Creating clearly named variables represents a really excellent coding practice because it drastically improves your program's readability. You always want your code to be easy for you and for anyone else looking at it to read and understand instantly. Let's move on to part 4, doing the math. Expressions and operations. Okay, let's see how this all builds together. We know how to talk to the computer without breaking the syntax, and we know how to store our data safely in clearly named variables. Now it's time to actually manipulate our data to make our program do something useful. And to do that actual work, we use an expression. Here's your next definition to jot down in those guided notes. An expression is a combination of variables, values, and mathematical operations that produces a result. By using mathematical operations like, say, adding 50 points to our player's score variable when you collect a gold coin in a game, we create expressions to do the actual heavy lifting in our programs.
An expression takes what's inside our storage boxes, does some math or logic with it, and boom, gives us a brand new result to work with.
All right, part 5. Time for a knowledge check. Test your skills. Okay, put your pencils down for just a second and let's see how well you're following along with these concepts. Here's a question for you. Which data type would you use to store the word hello? And what would be a clear variable name for it? Think back to those different data types we just covered and remember our rules for creating readable labels for our storage boxes. I'm going to give you a few seconds right now to think it over, maybe jot down your answer. Got it in your head? All right, let's see how you did. The correct answer is a string. Yep, because the word hello is made of text characters, you absolutely must use a string data type. And as for a clear variable name, you could use something simple and descriptive like greeting, so the full line of code would just be greeting equals hello. Remember, greeting is a way better container name than just using some random letter. If you got both parts of that right, great job. You've got a really solid grip on these basics.
And finally, part 6. The big takeaway, your next steps. So the crucial point we really want to drive home today is this. Mastering syntax, variables, and expressions is your absolute first step to commanding the machine and building real software. You aren't just memorizing random vocabulary today, you are actually learning how to logically structure information and literally bend the computer to your will. It's like a giant puzzle. Once you have these foundational building blocks firmly locked in your mind, the sky is truly the limit for what you can create in your future coding projects. Keep practicing your syntax, always keep your code readable with good variable names, and get excited to use these tools. You are officially on your way to becoming a programmer. So when you open up your very first blank coding project tomorrow, what is the very first variable you're going to create?